English Leap Podcast.
Learn easy English with Speak English Like a Pro. Hey, English learners, welcome back to the English Leap Podcast, your cozy place to learn easy English through real-life conversations and real feelings at the same time. I'm Mia, and I'm here with Jason.
Hey, everyone.
Jason, can I confess something slightly embarrassing?
Yeah, sure. Those are usually the best conversations.
Sometimes before ordering food in English, I still quietly practice the sentence in my head first.
Oh, that is so real.
You know the moment. You repeat the sentence perfectly in your mind, and then the real human being appears in front of you, and suddenly your English disappears.
Completely disappears. Your brain just leaves you behind.
Exactly.
Honestly, moments like that remind me of something from my past that perfectly connects to today's episode. It's about the worst English class I ever attended.
The worst English class. Already intriguing.
So I was 17, sitting in a classroom with 30 other students. The teacher was writing grammar rules on the board. Long, complicated rules with exceptions and sub-rules and footnotes.
The classic experience.
And I was copying everything down faithfully, page after page of rules. And then the bell rang, and I walked out of that classroom, and I could not say a single natural English sentence.
After how long?
3 years of classes.
3 years.
3 years, 30 students, 1 teacher, grammar rules on a board, and 0 ability to actually communicate in the language.
And here is what makes that story so important. It is not a unique story. That is the experience of millions of English learners around the world.
Millions who spent years in classrooms and left able to pass a test, but unable to order food in English without rehearsing it 3 times in their head first.
The rehearsed food order. I know this experience personally.
We all do. And the reason is not that those learners were bad students, and it's not that the teachers were bad teachers.
The reason is that learning in a classroom with 30 other people is fundamentally a different experience from learning for yourself, on your own terms, in your own time, in the specific way your specific brain absorbs things best.
And today, we are talking about self-study, not as a last resort when you can't afford a class, as the most powerful English learning method available to anyone who uses it properly.
Because here's the truth that most people do not know. The world's most fluent non-native English speakers are almost never the products of classrooms alone.
They're the products of self-study, of finding what works for them personally and doing it obsessively.
Obsessively is the right word. Not reluctantly, not dutifully, obsessively, because it became something they genuinely loved rather than something they felt they had to do.
And today, we want to help you get there. This is a B1 level episode, simple, honest, and immediately useful. We'll explain the important vocabulary as we go, and at the end, we'll have our word tour with 10 essential expressions from today.
Before we begin, one small request. If this podcast is part of your self-study routine, and we deeply hope it is, please like this episode and subscribe to the English Leap podcast. Every subscription helps more learners find us.
And in the comments today, we want to know, what is your current self-study routine? Even if it's just this podcast on the bus. Tell us. We want to know.
Okay, let us start with the most important question. What is self-study actually?
Because I think a lot of people hear self-study and picture someone alone at a desk with a textbook, highlighters everywhere, notes in the margin.
The lonely, studious image.
Very lonely, very textbook, and honestly not very effective for most people.
Real self-study is something completely different. Real self-study is when you take personal responsibility for your own learning, when you stop waiting for a teacher or a classroom to give you English, and you go and find it yourself.
In the ways that work for you, at the times that suit you, with the content that actually interests you.
And this is where self-study becomes genuinely exciting, because when you study something you actually find interesting, the learning stops feeling like an obligation.
It starts feeling like a hobby, a pleasure, something you look forward to rather than something you tick off a list.
And the learner who looks forward to their English practice and does it every day will always outpace the learner who dreads their English class but attends it dutifully twice a week.
Always. Frequency and genuine engagement beat obligation and structure every single time.
So, the first principle of effective self study is this: find English content that you would consume even if you were not trying to learn English.
Find the topics that genuinely fascinate you, the stories that pull you in, the conversations that make you feel something.
Because when the content is compelling, the learning is invisible. You're not studying, you're just living inside something you love, and the English comes along for the ride.
Compelling means so interesting or exciting that it holds your complete attention. Compelling content doesn't feel like work, it feels like being pulled forward.
And compelling is different for everyone. For some people, it's true crime podcasts. For others, it's cooking videos. For others, it's football commentary or technology discussions or romantic dramas.
Whatever it is for you, that's your primary self-study material.
Not the grammar book, not the vocabulary list, the thing you can't stop watching or listening to, even when you know you should be doing something else.
The dangerous level of interest.
The exact right level of interest for language acquisition.
Okay, let's talk about the third principle of self-study, because choosing good content is only the beginning.
What is the third principle?
Active engagement over passive consumption.
And this distinction is so important and so often missed.
Passive consumption means you're receiving English. It's going in through your ears or eyes. You're understanding it to some degree, but you're not doing anything with it.
You're watching, listening, reading, taking in.
Active engagement means you're doing something with the English, responding to it, repeating it, using it, writing about it, connecting it to your own life and your own words.
And the difference in how much you retain and how much becomes usable is enormous.
Research on memory consistently shows that the brain doesn't store information well simply because it was received. It stores information well when that information was used.
When you did something with it, when you connected it to something you already knew, when you had to retrieve it and apply it.
So the passive listener who watches 10 hours of English television but never speaks, writes, or actively engages will improve much slower than the active learner who watches 1 hour and then spends 20 minutes doing something with what they heard.
And what does active engagement actually look like practically? Because this is where people sometimes get stuck.
It looks like pausing a video and repeating a sentence out loud in the same tone and rhythm as the speaker.
It looks like writing 3 sentences in English about what you just listened to. Just 3, using some of the new words you heard.
It looks like answering our questions in the comments section in English with genuine thought.
It looks like talking to yourself in English while you cook or walk or commute, narrating your thoughts, processing your day.
It looks like keeping a small English journal, not a formal document, just a few sentences each day about anything at all.
And here's the thing about all of those activities. None of them require a teacher, none of them require a classroom, none of them require money or special equipment or a perfect environment.
They require only you, your voice, your attention, and the decision to engage rather than just consume.
Active engagement over passive consumption, the second principle of effective self-study.
Okay, third principle, and this one is the one most self-study learners skip, and it's the skipping of this one that explains why so many people plateau.
What is it?
Deliberate practice of your weak areas.
Oh, the uncomfortable one.
The very uncomfortable one. Because here's what naturally happens when people study on their own. They gravitate toward the things they're already good at.
Because those things feel rewarding. You do them and you feel competent. The English comes easily, the understanding is there. It feels like progress.
But it's not progress, it's performance.
Performance. Doing the things you already know in front of yourself.
The least useful audience. And real progress lives in the uncomfortable place, the place where you're not good yet, where things are hard, where you make mistakes.
And most self-study learners instinctively avoid that place. They don't even notice they're avoiding it. They just naturally migrate toward their comfort zone.
So deliberate practice means intentionally targeting the areas where you're weakest, not spending all your time there, but giving those areas regular, honest attention.
If your listening comprehension is strong, but your speaking is weak, most of your practice time should be speaking, not more listening.
If your reading is comfortable but your vocabulary for specific topics is limited, study those specific topics deliberately. Don't just read things you already understand easily.
And this requires honest self-assessment, looking at your English without vanity and identifying where the real gaps are.
Not the gaps that are easy to admit, the gaps that are slightly embarrassing to acknowledge.
Because those are the ones that, when addressed, produce the biggest leaps in overall ability.
The embarrassing gaps are always the most valuable ones to work on.
Write that on a motivational poster.
The least motivational poster in history, and the most useful.
Okay, fourth principle. Consistency over intensity.
This one we have mentioned before, but it deserves its own moment in the context of self-study, because self-study is especially vulnerable to the intensity trap.
What is the intensity trap?
The intensity trap is when you study for 4 hours in one day, feel incredibly productive, and then do nothing for the next 5 days.
And the 4-hour day felt like enormous progress. But the following 5 days of nothing undid most of it.
Because language does not consolidate in one long session. It consolidates through repeated contact over time.
Consolidate means to make something stronger and more stable, to fix it firmly in place. Language consolidates through sleep, through repeated exposure, through using the same words and structures across many different days and contexts.
One 4-hour session gives your brain a lot of input at once, but without repeated contact over the following days, most of that input fades.
But 20 minutes every day, that is a completely different story.
20 minutes every day means your brain encounters English first thing in the morning, or last thing at night, or on the commute, or while making dinner, regularly, repeatedly, without large gaps.
And each session builds on the previous one, and the previous one builds on the one before that. And what starts as 20-minute sessions slowly compounds into fluency.
The compound effect. Small, consistent actions building on each other until the total is something remarkable.
And 20 minutes is genuinely achievable on the busiest days, on the tired days, on the days when motivation has completely abandoned you.
Even 10 minutes on those days. Just keep the contact. Keep the streak alive.
Because the streak, the unbroken chain of daily contact with English, is one of the most powerful motivational tools in self-study.
You start wanting to protect the streak. You do the 10 minutes on the exhausted days, not because you feel like it, but because you don't want to break the chain.
And that motivation, the protection of continuity, is more reliable than inspiration, because inspiration comes and goes, but continuity is something you built and do not want to lose.
Consistency over intensity. Every time.
Okay, fifth principle. And this is the one that most people never think about, and it might be the most important.
What is it?
Build feedback into your self-study.
Because the biggest risk of studying alone is studying the wrong things in the wrong way with nobody to tell you.
You can practice a pronunciation mistake for months if nobody corrects you. You can repeat a grammar error so many times it becomes automatic. You can develop habits in your English that feel completely natural to you and are completely wrong.
And without feedback, you'll never know, and the mistake will compound instead of the improvement.
So how do you get feedback when you're studying alone?
Several ways. Language exchange partners. Finding someone who wants to learn your native language while you learn English. You help each other, both get real human feedback.
Online communities where you can post writing, recordings, or questions and get genuine responses from native speakers or advanced learners.
Tools like language learning apps that have pronunciation feedback built in. Imperfect, but better than nothing.
And one of the most powerful and most overlooked feedback methods, recording yourself.
Record yourself speaking English, then listen back and notice what you hear.
Because what you hear when you listen to a recording of yourself is often very different from what you think you sound like when you were speaking.
The pronunciation you thought was clear might sound muddled. The pace you thought was natural might be too fast. The sentence you thought was grammatically correct might reveal a pattern of error you never noticed.
And hearing yourself the way others hear you is one of the accelerating feedback experiences available. Uncomfortable at first, enormously useful always.
Nobody likes hearing their own voice.
Nobody, but everybody benefits from it.
Build feedback into your self-study. Do not let errors compound in the dark. Bring them into the light regularly and address them directly.
Okay, let's pull all 5 principles together before the word tour because I want them sitting clearly in your mind.
Principle 1. Find content you would consume even without the learning goal. Compelling, genuine interest. That's your fuel.
Principle 2. Active engagement over passive consumption. Do something with the English. Don't just receive it.
Principle 3. Deliberately practice your weak areas. The embarrassing gaps are the most valuable ones.
Principle 4. Consistency over intensity. 20 minutes every day beats 4 hours once a week. Every time.
Principle 5. Build feedback in. Record yourself. Find real human responses. Do not let errors compound in the dark.
5 principles, all achievable without a classroom, without a teacher, without money, with just you and your genuine commitment to the language you're building.
And here's what we want to say before the word tour. The most powerful English learning environment in the world is not a school or a language institute.
It's a motivated, self-directed learner who has found the method that works for their specific brain and their specific life.
That learner is not a prodigy. They are not specially gifted. They just made a decision.
The decision to take responsibility for their own English, to stop waiting for the perfect class or the perfect teacher or the perfect conditions.
And to begin today with what they have, where they are.
And if you're listening to this podcast, you already made that decision.
You already did.
So you're already ahead of the person who's still waiting.
Way ahead. Okay, word tour time. 10 expressions from today. Simple and powerful and permanently yours.
Listen, repeat out loud, and picture yourself using every one of these in your own conversations about learning and growth.
First expression, obsessively.
Obsessively means with an intense, consuming, almost excessive level of focus and interest. When someone does something obsessively, they think about it constantly and return to it repeatedly because they genuinely cannot stay away.
For example, the most fluent self-taught English speakers often describe their learning as something they pursued obsessively, not because it was required, but because they became genuinely captivated by the language and the world it opened.
Or, she practiced the song obsessively for 3 weeks. By the time she performed it, she had played through it so many times that the music lived in her hands without effort. Repeat. Obsessively.
Obsessively.
Slowly. Obsessively.
Next expression, compelling.
Compelling means so interesting and engaging that it holds your complete attention without effort. You don't have to force yourself to focus on something compelling. It pulls you naturally.
For example, she found the documentary so compelling that she watched 3 episodes in a row without noticing the time passing. That quality of effortless absorption is exactly what you want from your English learning.
Or, a compelling argument is one that is so well constructed and so clearly reasoned that it's difficult to dismiss. It makes you genuinely reconsider what you thought you believed. Repeat. Compelling.
Compelling.
Take your time. Compelling.
Next expression, gravitate.
To gravitate towards something means to be naturally attracted to it, to move in its direction as if pulled by a gentle, invisible force. Without consciously deciding to, you find yourself repeatedly drawn to it.
For example, without thinking about it consciously, most self-study learners gravitate toward their strongest areas, the things that already feel comfortable, which is why deliberate practice of weak areas requires conscious effort to override that natural pull.
Or, she had always gravitated toward creative work. From childhood, she was drawn to anything that involved making something new from nothing. Repeat. Gravitate.
Gravitate.
Slowly. Gravitate.
Next expression, self-assessment.
Self-assessment means evaluating yourself honestly, looking at your own abilities, knowledge, or progress with clear and objective eyes. Not too critical, not too generous. Honest.
For example, honest self-assessment revealed that her reading comprehension was excellent, but her spoken vocabulary was significantly more limited. That honest evaluation allowed her to target her practice where it would actually make a difference.
Or, regular self-assessment is one of the most underused tools in language learning. Most people either avoid looking at their weaknesses or are unaware of them. Honest, regular evaluation changes this. Repeat. Self-assessment.
Self-assessment.
Take your time. Self-assessment.
Next expression, consolidate.
To consolidate means to make something stronger, more stable, and more permanent. In language learning, consolidation is the process by which new knowledge becomes fixed in long-term memory. It happens through sleep, repetition, and using new language in multiple contexts.
For example, language consolidates through repeated contact over time. A word heard once might be recognized again. A word heard and used 20 times across different days and contexts becomes a permanent part of your vocabulary.
Or rest consolidates learning. This is not just a comfortable theory, it is documented neuroscience. The brain processes and fixes new learning during sleep in ways it cannot during waking hours. Repeat, consolidate.
Consolidate.
Slowly, consolidate.
Next expression, streak.
A streak is an unbroken sequence of something done consistently over consecutive days. In habit building and self-study, a streak means you have done something every day without missing. Protecting the streak becomes a powerful motivator.
For example, once his streak reached 30 days, he found himself doing his English practice even on exhausted evenings, not because he felt inspired, but because he genuinely did not want to break a chain he had worked so hard to build.
Or streaks are powerful because they shift motivation from inspiration-based to continuity-based. You are no longer asking, do I feel like doing this today? You are asking, do I want to break the chain today? Repeat, streak.
Streak.
Take your time. Streak.
Next expression, muddled.
Muddled means confused, unclear, and difficult to understand. When pronunciation is muddled, the sounds are not clearly separated and the listener has difficulty following. When thinking is muddled, the ideas are tangled and do not communicate cleanly.
For example, when she listened back to her recording, she was surprised to find that several sounds she thought were clear sounded muddled. Certain consonants were blending together in ways that would make them difficult for a native speaker to distinguish.
Or his explanation was muddled. He knew what he wanted to say, but the ideas had not been organized clearly before he started speaking, and the result was a confused tangle that left the listener more uncertain than before. Repeat, muddled.
Muddled.
Slowly, muddled.
Next expression, plateau.
A plateau is a period where progress stops despite continued effort, named after the geographical plateau, a flat, elevated area of land. In learning, a plateau is when you feel like you have stopped improving, even though you are still practicing.
For example, she had been studying for 2 years and felt her English had reached a plateau. The vocabulary was not growing noticeably, the fluency felt stuck. She eventually realized she had been doing the same comfortable activities repeatedly, rather than targeting her actual weak areas.
Or hitting a plateau is not a sign that you have reached your limit. It is almost always a sign that the method needs to change. The same input produces the same output. New growth requires new challenge. Repeat, plateau.
Plateau.
Take your time. Plateau.
Next expression, captivated.
To be captivated means to be completely fascinated and held by something. Your attention is fully captured. You are unable and unwilling to look away or move on.
For example, she was completely captivated by the series. She had started it for English practice, but within 2 episodes, she had forgotten she was studying. She was just living inside the story. That quality of being captivated is exactly what you want from your self-study content.
Or, he was captivated by the speaker from the first sentence. Something about the combination of honesty and humor made it impossible to look at anything else in the room. Repeat, captivated.
Captivated.
Slowly, captivated.
And our last expression today, self-directed.
Self-directed means guided by your own intentions, choices, and motivations rather than by external instructions or requirements. A self-directed learner takes ownership of their learning. They decide what, when, how, and why.
For example, self-directed learning is more sustainable than classroom learning for most adults because it adapts to the learner rather than the learner adapt to it. The schedule, the content, the pace all serve the individual rather than the group.
Or self-directed Becoming self-directed doesn't happen overnight. It requires developing the ability to identify your own needs, find resources that address them, and maintain motivation without external pressure. But once developed, it's one of the most valuable skills a person can have. Repeat, self-directed.
Self-directed.
Take your time. Self-directed.
That was our word tour for today. 10 expressions that belong in the vocabulary of any learner who takes their English seriously enough to own it.
And now, our final thought, the one that we want to stay with you.
There is no perfect class. There is no perfect teacher. There is no perfect method that will work for every person.
But there is a perfect learner for your English, and that learner is you. Taking responsibility, making it compelling, engaging actively, practicing honestly, showing up consistently.
And building feedback in so the growth is real and not just comfortable.
Self-study is not the backup plan when everything else fails. It is the main plan for every person who ever became truly fluent in a language they weren't born into.
They took responsibility, they found what worked for them, and they did it every day until the language became theirs.
And that path is open to you right now with this podcast, with the next piece of English content you choose, with the next sentence you say out loud.
You are already on it.
You have been on it longer than you realize.
And the destination is closer than it feels.
If today's episode gave you practical tools and genuine inspiration for your self-study journey, please like it, subscribe to the English Leap podcast, and share it with one English learner who is still waiting for the perfect class instead of building the perfect habit.
Tell them the class was never coming, but the fluency is, if they start today.
This is Mia.
And this is Jason.
And you have been listening to the English Leap podcast.
Bye.
Bye. Go study on your own terms, in your own way, with genuine curiosity and consistent effort. That's the whole formula, and it has never failed anyone who truly committed to it. Your progress doesn't end here. To continue advancing your English skills, click on the next video or explore the additional videos we've thoughtfully selected for you.